Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness." This is made clear in the book The Sun and Her Flowers, written by Rupi Kaur, a collection of poetry focused on romance and life experiences. This collection of short poems was published on October 3, 2017 by Andrews McMeel Publishing, and since then has become a #1 New York Times bestseller. It could also be considered part of the New Sincerity movement. The author Rupi Kaur was born on October 4, 1992 in Hoshiarpur, India, but later moved to Canada. How does madness and creativity help instill life lessons? They often go hand in hand. The thoughts madness can cause a person to experience is, well, maddening. It can drive emotions to the surface they did not know they could feel. Many times, different forms of creativity are a coping mechanism for this madness. It can make a person realize things they haven't in the past that can change their perspective of life. Madness can be defined as the state of being mentally ill, especially severely, extremely foolish behavior, or a state of frenzied or chaotic activity. This collection of poetry shows examples of all three definitions. Throughout this book, there are a few different causes of her madness. They are heartbreak, rape, and abuse. These are common but have a very large impact on the author. An example of how heartbreak caused madness is on page 15, when it says, "I reached for the last bouquet of flowers you gave me, now wilting on their vase one by one. I popped their heads off and ate them." My interpretation of this is that she is going through a breakup and is heartbroken over it. Heartbreak can make someone do crazy things that make no sense, things that seem mad. When she ate the heads off of the flowers, it was her way of destroying one of the last things to show for the relationship she had just lost. Another example of heartbreak causing madness is on page 36. "I remained committed long after you were gone. I could not lift my eyes to meet with someone else. Looking felt like betrayal. What excuse would I have when you came back and asked where my hands had been?" Loyal. Once again, crushed by a breakup, she is holding on to false hope. "I know how this feels. It feels as if there is something you can do to get this person back. You will do anything to see or talk to this person, even only for a minute. You start making excuses as to why they aren't with you right now, but thinking they will come back. It drives a person into madness until they finally realize that person they have been holding on to is not coming back." A final quote from the book that emulates madness caused by heartbreak is on page 43 when it says, "What draws you to her? Tell me what you like so I can practice." This is the worst thing, the most maddening thing. When a person starts comparing themselves to others, it is a downward spiral into madness. But when they are comparing themselves to others because of jealousy or because they envy the situation that another person is in, it can be dangerous. They start to overthink every single little detail about their appearance, how they act, and how they think they are perceived by others. It will never be good enough for them, though, unless the person who left comes back. They are not going to come back, though. It leads to depression, low self-esteem, and feelings of worthlessness. It can drive someone into destructive habits. Until this cycle is broken, they will keep falling deeper and deeper into madness. Another cause of madness in this book is abuse, more specifically, domestic abuse. On page 27, there is a lengthy poem that is the poster child for abuse and dependency. It says, "I tried to leave many times, but as soon as I got away, my lungs buckled under the pressure. Panting for air, I'd return. Perhaps this is why I let you sink me to the bone. Something was better than nothing. Having you touch me, even if it was not kind, was better than not having your hands at all. I could take the abuse. I could not take the absence. I knew I was beating a dead thing, but it did not matter if the thing was dead, when at the very least I had it." Addiction. This poem just shows how powerful love can be. When you're in love, nothing matters. You feel as if you need that person to survive, even if they hurt you physically, mentally, or emotionally. You can get the courage to leave, but the weight of the sadness and anxiety of not being with them is too hard to overcome. They cave into those feelings. It is a familiar thing with some people. They get attached and become dependent on that person for happiness, regardless of how they are being treated. On page 51, there is another good example of how abuse can cause someone to spiral into madness. It says, they leave and act like it never happened. They come back and act like they never left. Ghosts. This is a prime example of letting someone have complete control over you. They come and go as they please, acting like it is normal to do that. It makes the person feel as if they are an option, not important, and overall worthless. It can trigger a vicious cycle of overthinking which can drive a person mad. The final and most significant cause of madness in this work is rape. The author talks about sexual assault and how it affected her. On pages 68 and 69, she says, "But I should have known when you began to confuse kind conversation with flirtation. When you told me to let my hair down, when instead of driving me home towards the bright intersection of lights and life, you took a left to the road that led nowhere. I asked where we are going. You asked if I was afraid. My voice threw itself over the edge of my throat, landed at the bottom of my belly, and hid for months. All the different parts in me turned the lights off, shut the blinds, locked the doors, while I hid at the back of some upstairs closet of my mind as someone broke the windows. You kicked the front door in. You took everything, and then someone took me. It was you. This is an extremely traumatic event. She trusted this man she thought she knew enough to get into his car, but that was a mistake. It was the start of a long spiral into depression and PTSD that made her go mad. She blamed herself for not knowing. This is something many victims of sexual assault go through. This shows how men think they can control a woman without consequence. The victims go through such torture, mentally and physically, because of this. It changes who they are as a person forever. Your attacker takes something from you you can never get back. It truly can make a person mad. One more quote from the book that exemplifies just how much of an impact is made by the rape is on page 93 when she says, "Parts of my body still ache from the first time they were touched." It stays with you forever. You still feel their touch, hear their voice and breath, smell their sweat. It is a feeling that you can never shake off. It is truly maddening. It drives a person to the point of insanity. According to the Mayo Clinic, symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder include intrusive memories, avoidance, negative changes in thinking and mood, and changes in physical and emotional reactions. However, it can change depending on the person. Based on the context of this book, it seems as if the author is suffering from PTSD to some degree. She has unwanted memories of the rape and is struggling with her mental health. In addition to this, she seems to be suffering from clinical depression as well as anxiety. This is similar to what the main character of Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson has gone through. She was sexually assaulted at a party and experienced similar feelings. An example is when Melinda said, "I can't stop biting my lips. It looks like my mouth belongs to someone else, someone I don't even know." Both the author of The Sun and Her Flowers and the character Melinda have experienced similar things. According to the Mayo Clinic, depression comes with the following symptoms: feelings of sadness, tearfulness, emptiness or hopelessness, angry outbursts, irritability or frustration, even over small matters, loss of interest or pleasure in most or all normal activities, such as sex, hobbies or sports, sleep disturbances, including insomnia or sleeping too much, tiredness and lack of energy, so even small tasks take extra effort, reduced appetite and weight loss or increased cravings for food and weight gain, anxiety, agitation or restlessness, slowed thinking, speaking or body movements, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, fixating on past failures or self-blame, trouble thinking, concentrating, making decisions, and remembering things, frequent or recurrent thoughts of death, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, or suicide and/or unexplained physical problems, such as back pain or headaches. Throughout the book, there are mentions of multiple feelings and actions just described. The unfortunate events the author had gone through have caused the feelings, emotions, and actions that led to the diagnosis of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. This made me think back to when we read Styron's Darkness Visible. It spoke about the ways depression affects a person. He said, "You cannot wrap your head around what depression feels like unless you have been through it before. Mental illness is something very hard to understand, but with it becoming more talked about, especially in creative ways, it can be accepted. By definition, madness is the state of being mad, insanity, selfless, folly, frenzy, rage, or intense excitement or enthusiasm. Based on everything read, it is safe to say that she was driven to the point of madness. At first, it seemed as if she would never break the cycle of overthinking, depression, madness, and hopelessness. But as the poetry progressed, the reader could see that things do get better. You learn valuable life lessons that help a person become the best version of themselves. Her trajectory of madness seems to be dissipating. It seems as if she does recover. The creative adult is the child who survived. Ursula Le Guin. This quote ties back to one of the very first artist notebooks we were assigned in class. It asked our opinion on the link between madness and creativity. I believe there is a link between madness and creativity, but I do not believe you need to have one to be or to have the other. I think being mad can aid in creative mindset and thinking process because mental illness or madness distorts a person's way of thinking and is seen as abnormal to someone that does not have a mental illness. I feel as if this reflection is significant to the text being analyzed. The entirety of this book was one creative outlet for Ruby Carr. She poured all of her thoughts, feelings, and emotions into her work. It was very raw and showed vulnerability. Her poetry is her form of creativity, used as an outlet for her own life. It functions as a way for her to cope with the trials and tribulations of life healthily. The results of this is an extensive collection of different works of literature, including this book, The Sun and Her Flowers. From this, I have learned one very important life truth. To become a better person, a stronger person, you must experience the darkness in life. You need to experience hardships and sadness and anger. It is a part of life. On page 114 in one of her poems, she is reflecting on something said by her mother. People too must wilt, fall, root, rise in order to bloom. This quote encompasses the whole belief that we as people will experience some negative things in life, but will make it through and prevail. Madness and creativity can go hand in hand to help create some amazing works of art, such as paintings, movies, or pieces of literature. In the book of poems, The Sun and Her Flowers, the Indian-Canadian poem Ruby Carr spoke about her troubles and triumphs in life through poetry. Many things drove her to madness, and things that built her up. She used her creativity to cope and overcome her battles with depression and PTSD. This is a prime example of how creativity and madness build on each other to create something wonderful.